And good evening, everyone. Though I am a bit saddened tonight to hear in the chat room we have the passing of a beloved pet. That's always hard. So sorry to hear that, JJ. Hope that you can, go through the process. But how's everyone doing this Saturday night? It is time to talk anime and everything else because, hey, it's Saturday and we're now switched over to the Saturday schedule, which I think is going to do well. I am glad to see that, and I am very hopeful that I can make this a regular thing as we talk about anime. How have your weeks been? What have you been watching? What's been on your anime plate? I watched quite a bit since last week. Watched Lou Over the Wall last Saturday. That was awesome. Sort of Masaki Yuasa's Ponyo. I mean, it's basically Ponyo, but with its own set of characters and such. And it was amazing. I have my issues with Ponyo. Not my favorite Miyazaki film, personally, but Lou pretty much resolved all the problems I had with it. Also, a strange animation style. Couldn't quite tell what was like CGI, what was rotoscoped, what was hand-drawn. There was certainly some hand-drawn stuff, particularly in the dancing sequences, ironically enough. Seems an odd inversion there, but Lou Over the Wall was a very interesting. I might go back to that and dig into it. Also, finally watched the first episode of Made in Abyss, which has been recommended to me multiple times in the past. Just had not gotten to that yet, and really enjoyed that first episode, despite the slight creepiness of the referencing the girl being tied up naked and as punishment and seen by the whole school, which is like, but anyway. See here. Been reading Kingdom, Mary Grave, Maria the Virgin Witch. I've heard multiple people recommend Maria the Virgin Witch as being just, top level anime. So maybe one of these days. I think I may have that, actually. I think I may have bought a copy of that on DVD at some point because of the number of recommendations. Let me find out. You know what? Stand by. There we go. Because I've been watching all this anime, I went back and finally filed a bunch of DVDs. This is one of my DVD binders, my anime DVD binders. For reference, this is H through O. So let me grab that and let me go through the M's. There's Idol Project. Did any of you manage to track down Idol Project? Okay. Maria. Life, Like the Clouds Like the Wind, Lost Universe. I've not seen yet. Made, Malchon. No, I have Maid Sama and Hanokyo Maid Team. And for some reason, I guess the M's there were making me think of Maria Sama ga Miteru. Season 6 of Ruby, nice. Beastars, I definitely want to get back to Beastars at some point. I believe that's coming to Netflix fairly soon. Fair enough, JJ. Well, I need to find the other half of Idol Project because I only have the the first disc. In fact, now that I say that, oh, that's heavy. Let me just double check. Good old Right Stuff. Do they have it? I mean, if anyone would have it, I'm not seeing it. Categories. No. Categories, Blu-ray. Yeah, I don't think it was released on Blu-ray. No, they don't. Let me just see here. I mean, it's old. Idol Project, Super Pop Anthology. $12. Not sure if this contains OVA episodes 1 through 4. Cool. I don't know how I managed to get a copy of just half of it. So if you search Idol Project on Amazon, you will find it. I should probably just go ahead and, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, there, it's on its way. Maria's on sale at Right Stuff. Cool. I should also see if is it streaming? It's on Funimation. Funimation has it, so that's good to know. In case anyone wants to check it out, you can hop over on Funimation. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that, JJ, that Alicization is kind of a, B to C grade experience in the SAO universe. Not bad. Just kind of there. Experience. Bookworm, how far are you into Bookworm? Because I'm kind of right there with you. I'm like a little over halfway in, I think. And it does pick up a little bit, but it is very much not even a slice of life. It's just a story of a young girl in a pseudo-medieval universe. And so I've since realized that Bookworm is aimed at children. It's more an anime for people who are for kids who are curious about like how books are made and how writing works and how like a medieval society should work. Episode 5 of Bookworm, okay, yeah. So you've seen episode 4, I think, has the big sort of magical reveal. There is a thing that happens in I think episode 6 or so that does add some urgency. And does sort of drive the plot forward somewhat, but it is a slow series, so just be ready for that. I will probably finish it out. I'm enjoying it, but thus far it's kind of a 7 out of 10. Better than average. I think there's the animation. I find the character designs just very attractive, very easy to watch, and there's enough attention paid to not just kind of the realism of that world in the sense of the practicalities of how you live and where you live and such, as opposed to a lot of other shows that kind of ignore those things. Kind of like If It's For My Daughter, which kind of disappointed me in its ending, but also just there wasn't too much there about how the world worked, which I would have liked to see. Bookworm's a little more a little more focused on kind of trying to make a realistic setting, but that's all it is. There's not much in the way of plot of it so far. But like I said, I'll try finishing it out. Yeah, I can totally understand why Bookworm would turn people off. I have a friend of mine who is a big Bookworm, and last I checked, she's also kind of like, nah. So, totally appreciated. Still watching Demon School. Nice. Yeah. I hear that, JJ. I think also Bookworm will appeal more to folks who this is gonna sound creepy. Likes children. And again, I don't mean that in a creepy way, but just I spend a lot of time doing volunteer work with church clubs and such with kids, like 10 to 12-year-old kids. So I just kind of have I enjoy spending time, or I enjoy watching how children experience the world, right? I can hang out with kids more easily than a lot of other folks. And so I think Bookworm kind of appeals more to folks like that who are like, oh, it's fun watching these kids, interact with their world, and just what a kid's life would be like in this kind of a setting. So I think that helps. But yeah. You don't really enjoy the characters of Assassin's Pride. I can see that. Want to know what the world is about, but not through the main characters. I understand that. That's fair. I've not seen more of Assassin's Pride, so I'm not sure. I've been really enjoying No Gun's life. It's a little the characterizations are a little thin, but it is noir, and noir characters typically aren't particularly complex. I mean, they can be. Like the protagonist can be complex, and I am getting some of that out of the protagonist, but. Thus far, it's a little more actiony. It feels kind of Trigun-like, where you have these sort of wild antagonists that the characters bounce up against, and doing so tells you something about the protagonists. But like the villains aren't particularly, intricate, and it's focusing a little bit more on the wildness and ridiculousness of its setting. So I'm hoping that it will move around in some direction. Tokyo Godfathers, yeah, that's worth seeing. I'm sure that's gonna. That seems like a perennial. It's either on DVD, on disc, or will come back on disc. High School Prodigies, yeah. Actually, one of the one of the folks on Discord really did not really bounced off of High School Prodigies pretty strongly. And on thinking about it, I was like, I get that. Like, I understand why High School Prodigies would be kind of difficult to grasp. Not difficult to grasp. Would be it's the particular combination of kind of insane premise behind the Prodigies, with also like really grounded approach to setting in terms of dealing with economics and political power and so forth, and then frequent, very in-your-face fan service is something that just I was like those things work for me. I find the fan service to be frankly so in your face that it's at least it's not trying to sneak anything in. Like it's very obvious when they're being fan servicey. But that's that thing. Who knows? So we've actually got some news about an anime airing this coming up season, which is pretty short notice. So we'll see. I think High School Prodigies. I'm hoping High School Prodigies builds up to a satisfying ending. That's really what I want, and I don't necessarily need an ending that ties up all the loose ends. But they're definitely building in terms of the plot there, and I just hope it doesn't, stop at a cliffhanger, like so many of these stories. When there's this much build-up, I want something to happen. Who knows? But I was actually trying to pull up my Amazon watch list, and I cannot find it. Let me just search. How to see what you watched on Amazon Prime. No. No. Okay. Your account personalization. That's weird. Hold on. Your account. This doesn't seem personalized. Nope. This seems to be out of date. Personalization. Select improve your recommendations. No. So let's see. Do they have some click here on like something to click on to say, um, you know, view videos you've watched, communication and content, Prime Video settings, manage content devices, Prime Video channels. I'm not seeing it. Have they moved that around? I wonder. Wouldn't surprise me. Video settings, videos you've uploaded. Nope. Gotta be something. I hear that, Matt. What are you reading? That you now know has a. There it is. Interesting. I don't know how to get to it now. Lure of the Wall, the Visitor. See any of this? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So here's the thing. There's some stuff I watched that wasn't anime, but was great fun. And this is geek archaeology, not just anime archaeology. So I finally watched Turbo Kid, the absurd 80s thing, which was a lot of fun. Don't think I'd watched that since last time. Turbo Kid is just, post-apocalyptic sci-fi, as if made by Steven Spielberg in like 1983. Great fun. Also watched Saturn III, a sci-fi thriller with Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett and Harvey Keitel, who are basically the only three actors in the movie. That was surprisingly gripping. Really like that one. If you're looking for something really sweet and cute, particularly if you have younger kids in your periphery or your circle, you can check out Ernest and Celestine, a French animated film that is absolutely adorable, about a bear and a mouse who become friends. That's not exactly a spoiler. It's just really adorable, amazing animation. Really, really just mind-boggling animation. The ultimate kind of themes of the film, kind of where it goes at the end, I would raise some questions about, given some of the stuff they set up, but oh well. But it's absolutely gorgeous. Animation style, kind of like Mouse Guard, kind of like the Charmin polar bear commercials, that kind of stuff. Let's see here. And then if you're looking for a really upbeat, happy time, check out Wrinkles, which is an animated film set in an old folks' home, about people who are slowly losing their minds. There are comedic aspects, but it's not a very, you will not end that film feeling, like it was a laugh-a-minute riot. Very, very well done. Simplistic. It has it's based on an indie comic, and so it has that kind of indie comic feel of it. But a pretty heavy film a lot of the time. It is about God's waiting room basically. But if you're interested in unusual animation, unusual animated films, Wrinkles is definitely one of them. Jay asking about the anime X. I have only seen bits and pieces of X, and from what I have seen and heard, it is very much not an acquired taste. It is a specific taste. People love it or hate it. It is kind of peak Clamp in character design and artistic style, but that is just kind of what you have to deal with, So I don't have a really good sense of that. I've actually read some of the manga of it, and it's just very much, pretty boys fighting over the fate of the world. I would say give it a try, but don't be surprised if it just doesn't work for you. Sorry. That's fine. Just check. Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen. Boy, that looks shonen, doesn't it? Seem to have heard of Jujutsu Kaisen. Maybe it just came up in one of the news things. Plot: a naturally fit high school student living in Sendai. See here. A cult club, powerful curse. Interesting. Sort of a horror-ish thing. And then Doro Hedoro. Similar, I've heard the name. Oh man, that looks familiar. Q Hayashida or K Hayashida, I'm not sure. Post-apocalyptic setting. Visual style sure looks... Nope, I don't have it. But that looks awesome. I wish I did. Been reading If Rock and Roll Were a Machine. Interesting. Kono Ototomare? I'm not familiar with that one. Sounds of Life. Interesting. Cool. All right. That is interesting. So yeah, if you like Clamp, Jay, I think X will work with you. It's just beware; it's a very different kind of Clamp, very more shonen-y. I mean, there's a lot of shoujo aspects too, but whatever. Is that Haruhi in the center behind you? It is indeed. Haruhi, Kyon, and Yuki enjoying their day in the club room. Hey, Game Escape, good to see you. Hi, Yoko. Hey, wait a minute. Y'all hear that? Let's get this started. I need a drink, this kind. I'm also trying to slow down my speech, so we'll see if that works this time. Welcome back to the anime and manga news for the week ending December 14th, 2019, beginning with: it seems all the protests surrounding pirated manga and other materials is paying off. A bill to revise Japan's copyright laws is in the works for next year. The Japanese Agency for Cultural Affairs has been working on proposed revisions concerning the downloading of illegal media from the internet. Now, the agency's original proposition was revealed in February, long time ago, and called for a ban on deliberately downloading any kind of illegal media online. Current laws only punish consumers if the pirated media is music or video, so the new plan would expand the scope of current laws. However, this idea was met with criticism, arguing that the regulations were too broad and would limit internet users' freedom of expression. Technically, you couldn't download, a single frame of a manga for a wallpaper or whatever. The plan has been revised since then, and a committee of experts met at the end of November to discuss the new plan. The committee included manga creator Ken Akamatsu, along with publisher, public relations managers, copyright scholars and lawyers, and representatives from organizations that work to protect freedom of expression. So, nice range there. they discussed making changes like allowing screenshots of works or downloading a certain number of manga panels. The agency also plans to further discuss whether the download of original works and the act of downloading from piracy sites will be illegal. They hope to finalize the bill by January and submit it to the Japanese Diet sometime in early 2020. So, who knows, but interesting to see that changing around a little bit. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police arrested a woman on Tuesday for allegedly threatening the retail store chain Animate. According to police, the woman sent a string of death threats to the store via email referencing Kyo Annie's tragedy and telling the staff at Animate that they should, quote, prepare to die at any moment, end quote. She is officially suspected of forcible obstruction of business and interfering with the company's security. The suspect was apparently banned from Animate's online service back in September 2018 after repeatedly making and canceling orders. The investigation reports that she admitted to that charge, saying that she was angry with the company's response. Yes, online shopping can be frustrating, but this is definitely not the appropriate response. Now, that said, good job to the authorities taking action, and let's hope for the continued safety of businesses and studios in Japan and everywhere. Let's just hope everything stays. Just don't do this, please. Meanwhile, anime studio Kinema Citrus Company announced on Wednesday that Bushiroad and Kadokawa have each acquired about a third of the studio's shares. Each company now holds 31.8% of the company's shares, with the studio's representative director holding the remaining 36.4% controlling stake. They noted in the announcement that the new arrangement will allow the three companies to more securely and confidently develop globally targeted intellectual property, i.e. anime franchises and such. Kinema Citrus is known in recent years for its productions of Made in Abyss and Rising of the Shield Hero, along with the anime adaptation of Bushiroad's Review Starlight franchise. If you haven't watched the first episode of that is bonkers. The three companies had previously announced a partnership in July with the aim of producing a stable intellectual property and producing anime in response to its growing popularity both abroad and domestically. So hopefully some interesting things will come out of that. Now this week also brings many new anime announcements. Ready? Here we go. First up, Tsuburaya Productions and publisher Pony Canyon revealed today that Studio Trigger, that's right, will be animating a new anime project in the Gridman universe. The new anime will be titled SSSS Dynazenon and brings back director Akira Amamiya and other main staff members from the original SSSS Gridman anime series, which premiered in October 2018. That's probably the wrong way to pronounce it. The format of the new project has not yet been announced, so watch out for more details. But a teaser video is up on Pony Canyon's YouTube channel, so check that out if you're interested. Public broadcaster NHK has announced that it will be producing a new sports anime focusing on para-athletes. The new show, titled Breakers, will premiere on January 7th as part of the channel's Tensai TV Konyu educational program. It will tell 4 stories about 4 different sports: wheelchair basketball, track and high jump, goalball, and Paralympic swimming. The main educational program will also feature guest stars associated with the actual sports, which makes sense. NHK being very much a public television kind of a thing. This will hopefully be a great new view of sports anime, so keep an eye out for that next month if you are interested. Multimedia project Idly Pride, I'm sorry, I cannot say that name with a straight face, announced on Monday that the franchise is getting a TV anime adaptation under Cyber Agent's new CA Animation label. CA Animation was formed in October 2018, and this anime will be its first project. The story focuses on, of course, idol groups. The project's promotional material reads, quote, "No one starts from the spotlight. They all start as nobody. Only way there is to prove that she is a true idol," end quote. I guess we'll have to watch and find out what being a true idol really involves. I suspect it's singing and dancing. More information on the anime will be revealed in March. The larger multimedia project is planned to include video games, music, and several other forms of entertainment along with the anime. So basically the Idolmaster Love Live structure. We all get it. All right. The official Twitter account for Sosuke Toka's manga Osama Ranking, or King Ranking, revealed that the manga is receiving an anime adaptation. The web manga tells the coming-of-age story of Boji, the firstborn prince of his kingdom, who is deaf and powerless. He tries hard and dreams of becoming the world's greatest king, but people whisper behind his back that he is good for nothing and could never be a king. So, pretty dark stuff there. The story begins with Boji making his first friend, Kage, a literal shadow, who was a member of the now extinct Kage clan of assassins, and then follows his journey of meeting people and growing up. Okay. Manga creator Hidekichi Matsumoto announced this week that her manga Inu to Neko Dochimo Kateru to Mainichi Tanoshi, or I Enjoy Raising Both a Dog and a Cat Every Day, is getting its own anime adaptation. The essay manga began as illustrated anecdotes posted on Twitter and tells the story of Matsumoto's daily life raising a sweet and innocent dog and a devilishly vicious yet adorable cat. So basically like that stuff from Sinfest, right? Meanwhile, yesterday's issue of Shogakukan's monthly Koro Koro Comics announced an anime adaptation for Sakuya Kuroda's Rich Police Cash manga. As you might have guessed from the title, the story follows rich policeman Cash, who solves any and every problem with the power of money. Hopefully this is framed as a what not to do type of story. The new comic anime is set to premiere on the Koro Koro YouTube channel on January 15th, so I'm assuming these are short episodes, sort of web animation style. Finally, Nintendo revealed today that Studio Colorido is producing a series of animated shorts based on the new Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield games. The anime, titled Pokemon Twilight Wings, will consist of 7 5-minute-long episodes. The first episode is set to debut on YouTube on January 15th, with new episodes airing monthly afterwards. The Pokemon Company International describes the ensemble drama series, saying, quote, "Over the span of 7 episodes, Pokemon Twilight Wings will show in detail the dreams of Galar's residents, the realities they face, the challenges they must overcome, and the conflicts they must resolve," end quote. Studio Colorido, known for a lot of short films, particularly the McDonald's anime commercials. The upcoming Type Moon Museum Tracing 15 Years of Type Moon exhibit has revealed details of its contents this week. Part of this year's 15th anniversary celebration of Fate's Stay Night, the museum will run from December 20th through April 5th at the Sony Music Roppongi Museum. The exhibit will be divided into 7 areas, and yes, I'm going to list them all. Area 1, the Face of Type Moon, a recreation of creator Kinoko Nasu's workspace, as well as office and desk spaces at Type Moon. Area 2, Type Moon's history, as shown through production materials, presumably like cells and such. Area 3, How to Make Fate Stay Night, a breakdown of the visual novel's characters, videos, soundtrack, and direction. Yep. Area 4, Gallery Type Moon, which is, you guessed it, a gallery of illustrations from Type Moon's various works. Not done yet. Area 5, Type Moon and Our Era, a showcase of works derived from the setting of the original Fate Stay Night. The many, many works derived from it. Area 6, Fuyuki City Day and Nightmare, a 13-meter map and diorama depicting Fate's Fuyuki City. And Area 7, a Carnival Phantasm, a showcase of magazine covers featuring Type Moon characters and messages of support from various people related to the franchise. Congratulations! that said, to Type Moon on the anniversary, and here's to many more years of many more Fate series. And I'm sure we will have many more Fate series. And lastly, speaking of, our fun bit of news for the week, the Japan Racing Association has launched another wild anime collaboration, this time with the characters of Fate Grand Order. In the new collab, the main characters of the new TV anime series travel back in time to observe and commentate past Arima Kinen horse races. Because why not? The interactive website is titled, get ready for this, Fate Grand Prix Order Absolute Horse Racing Front Arimania. The associated Fate anime title's full title is Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia, so you can see where the collaboration got its little name. Visitors to the site can race shift to a randomly selected Arima Kinen race. Footage from the historical race is then shown, along with commentary from one of 8 main characters from the anime. Afterwards, you'll receive an explanation about the race, which isn't the commentary for that, and the opportunity to share your findings on Twitter and be entered into a prize drawing, with possible prizes including a signed poster, a phone case, and other kinds of collab-specific art. So, if you've ever wanted to listen to Gilgamesh, Enkidu, or Ishtar give commentary on a horse race, check out the website. And let's be real, even if you never wanted that before, you probably do now. That's the news for this week. Thank you all. See you next week. All right. Yeah, exactly, Rachel. Oh. Yeah, I cannot keep up with Fate Stay Night. Fate is a thing that exists and is absurdly massive, and it makes no sense. That's a good question, JJ. I assume Derby Girls was... Yeah, I think I recall seeing a credit in there saying that Derby Girls was partially sponsored by or in association with the Japan Racing Association. So that's a good question, Jay. Fate Stay Night has done a cooking show. They're doing horse racing now. What's next? I think Fate Stay Night motorcycle racing. Hospital drama. Why not? Fate Stay Night characters as doctors and nurses in an inner city hospital, maybe. Thank you, Yoko. I appreciate that. Idols, of course. Razalux. We need Fate Stay Night idols. With, one of the really hot guys as the producer, of course. And the question is, do you do Fate Stay Night on Ice? Yes. The question is, are all of the girls like the Fate girls, or is it an all-new cast? It has to be an all-new cast, so that you can merchandise the bejesus out of all of those girls, right? Why do that one? Yep, Exercise 1. Got to do a Fate Stay Night Exercise anime. Exercise with Fate. There's already a VR anime project. I actually have it on my PS4. It's a pretty darn good, a pretty darn well-made VR game. Some weird pervy stuff in it, but whatever. Isekai, true. Isn't Fate Stay Night... Well, I guess it isn't technically an isekai. It's because the characters are coming over into our world. That's true. Of course, yes. All new girls except Saber. Because Saber, right? Gotta have Saber in there somewhere. Although, if Fate Stay Night does an isekai, it has to be like all the characters from Fate Stay Night suddenly are now transported into a fantasy world. Like into, you can't just have all the craziness of Fate Stay Night. You have to then add that to, crazy magic powers, completely new magic system. Just go nuts. Uh, I'd love to see Fate Stay Night done as like a gory '90s anime, like a Wicked City kind of a thing, just something really over the top and grotesque. Fate Stay Ninja Scroll, basically. That'd be pretty cool. Hey, Sebastian, good to see you. Been a little while. That would be pretty interesting. They could certainly do that with Fate. You know, from what little I've seen, there's just so much ridiculousness there. And YK2K, good to see you as well. But yeah, so that's pretty crazy that there's all that out there. Or something else. Yeah, the copyright stuff I'm glad to hear. Kana Kamatsu did UQ Holder, Love Hina, bunch of other stuff, and he actually started a like a manga, a legal manga viewing site. That was an attempt to do kind of a fair distribution where folks could read manga on it and the creators would get a decent chunk of the money. I think it was a subscription service. So he's really, he's really tied into this whole space and understanding the issues. And Ken Nakamatsu regularly makes doujinshi of his own characters. So he's very aware of concerns around copyright and such. So I'm glad that works. I'm glad that he's involved. Hey, Jacob. I have not talked about anything Captain Harlock. Is there Captain Harlock news besides the very sad death of of Harlock's voice actor last week? It's hard to hear that. How not to summon the Demon Lord? What is that? I remember watching some of that. Let me pull up some images on that one. What was that one? Oh yeah. Two girls try to summon a demon, but they get bound to him instead of the reverse. Seemed very very pervy to me. Which again is not necessarily a bad thing, but just felt a little weird in that sense. So didn't watch that. Or, one of those things where, and unfortunately that came out at a season where there's a bunch of other stuff that really caught my eye. I didn't talk about the higher up at Gynax getting arrested because it was kind of in the, it kind of came out at a weird point in the news cycle, and there wasn't a lot of information available. I'm always a little touchy on those subjects because there's a lot of, he said, she said. And I don't want to, report too early on that kind of stuff. How Not to Summon was better than most of its descriptions. Gotcha. Okay. I know of a lot of anime like that. Just started watching Gintama this week. You have a lot to catch up on. Fair enough. Yeah, I think Gynax is frankly not long for this world. And I say that with no particular emotion one way or the other. It will certainly be sad if Gynax does eventually go under. But let's be honest, it's been... Gynax has been floundering for quite a number of years now, and I think Gynax is just, going to go down. Jacob, you're right. What I mean is I think Gynax as an animation studio, as a creative original properties, will fade away. Someone will still own the IP and still make money off the IP and so forth. But I think Studio Kara will keep on doing the Evangelion stuff. But Gynax will just be essentially like a shell corporation just for the IP. There's just not much to, they just haven't really been doing anything, frankly, and they keep struggling. The fact that it was when Trigger split off that was really the bad sign. It's like the folks really driving the direction of the company in terms of animation and doing new things, all left. I don't think you guys understand how small Gainax is as a studio. Um, Gainax is 18 people, according to Wikipedia. Gainax is a very, very small thing. It could very easily just fade away. "18 employees. Most of the founders, even if they technically work there, they're not actually involved in the day-to-day running of the company. Um, and obviously, I'm not saying Gainax will fail. I'm saying there is a real chance. Um, in other words, I'm saying I think it will. I wouldn't be surprised if it will. I'm not saying it's definite, but um, let's just scroll down. Um, their most recent TV series was Wish Upon the Pleiades in 2015. So they've had no new TV anime in 4 years. Before that was Magica Wars, Stella Women's Academy, and Medaka Box. Mystic Archives of Dantalion. Do any of these ring a bell? Their most recent standout TV anime was Panty and Stocking, which was 2010, 9 years ago. They've obviously been working on the Rebuild movies, but Studio Kara is mostly handling that. OVAs and ONAs. Again, the Wish Upon the Pleiades in 2011. Then before that, Die Buster in 2004. So their output has been really, really thin. Yeah, that's the thing, Razalux. A lot of the stuff from that era, Mahoromatic, thoroughly okay. This Ugly Yet Beautiful World, thoroughly okay. Um, Hanamaru Kindergarten. The big standouts were basically stuff that from what became Trigger. So, who knows? Um, so yeah, I mean, the anime industry evolves and shifts in all sorts of ways. So, um, I don't expect we're going to see a huge amount of I don't think we'll see a huge amount of output from Gainax because there's just nothing going in. They're not on a big hiring push. Since Kara is handling Evangelion, there's really nothing for Gainax to do there. And that was very clearly very much, Ano saying, I want Evangelion to be made under my own company over here. Excuse me. Just double checking something. Huh. They don't list the number of Studio Kara's employees on here. It should also be pointed out, number of full-time employees is a tricky number. You could have a number of animators working on a contract basis, so that's not neither of those numbers are necessarily a representative of the full staff working on projects, particularly at anime studios. But still, who knows? Gainax is a major name, but it's not a major force anymore in terms of boots on the ground doing stuff. So I completely agree it's a big name, but it's like saying Flash Gordon is a big name. It's like saying Robin Hood is a big name. Those are absolutely well-known properties. People are aware of who that is, but that doesn't make them necessarily active cultural forces, right? So there was a good video I watched a while back on the Robin Hood movie, saying that a lot of times Hollywood producers misunderstand the difference between popularity and relevance. Like Robin Hood and King Arthur are good examples of things where everyone knows what that is, but that doesn't mean there are a huge number of like passionate fans for it compared to say Marvel, where yes, that has spread out to a large fan base. But when those Marvel movies came out, there was a large passionate fan base for those characters besides just sort of general name recognition. Whereas Robin Hood does not have I mean, there are certainly Robin Hood fans, but it doesn't have that kind of a rabid fan base, and that's the weird situation you get into, where you have some of these properties where it's like, yeah, everyone knows what this is, but it's not necessarily something that's um, creating effective new IPs or anything in there. Um, Yeah, Gainax could totally do something. And that's the point. That's kind of their track record for the past decade has been you know a track record of tailing off new projects. They haven't made anything new in like 5 years, and then there was not much in the 5 years before that. So who knows? Um, I have seen zero of One Piece, Yoko. I'm afraid I am the wrong person to ask. I do not know what happened there. I would suspect that One Piece became unexpectedly. The popularity of One Piece that kind of exceeded expectations. They certainly knew One Piece would be a big thing, but I think One Piece kind of exploded, and so Madhouse probably realized, oh, okay, we're gonna need to keep this going at a pace that we didn't expect. Um, so that's what I would expect there. One Piece certainly has a reputation for some impressive animation. Um, Obviously, there's cheapness here and there. Same in any shonen series, but it does seem like the One Piece staff, like the Naruto staff, really wants that high quality action animation. And in a show like that, where you have these very, I mean, One Piece is more cartoony, and in that I mean obviously squash and stretch physics and things like that, and so for that you need movement. You need um, you need an animation, a serious animation budget for that, as opposed to say Naruto, which has some amazing animation, but you can get away with being more stylized, with cutting back on animation here and there when telling your story. It's a different beast. And again, nothing against either of them, but I think One Piece needs that push. Um, this is the worst possible time to pull out of the game. Well, I mean, I don't know. I would argue that 1998 was the worst time to pull out of the game, or maybe 95, with the with the rise of North American bucks coming into the industry. But again, I am not arguing that I think Gainax should. I am arguing that Gainax that the evidence shows that Gainax is slowing down. They're not producing anything of note, other than collaborations. Um, well, Yoko, I don't know. Yeah, no, I hear you, Sebastian. I agree it would be sad. Well, that's the thing. Like I said earlier on, you know, I think if Gainax goes here, as sad as it would be for Gainax to shut down, I think it would be worse for Gainax to limp along in mediocrity, or to limp along producing things that nobody likes. I'm not saying that the things they've made nobody likes, but in recent years. But I would rather close the chapter than have Gainax sort of sit around, kind of, you know, just being there, as opposed to being able to say, Gainax is done, this is its legacy, period. It's why it's great when you see certain authors and certain directors say, okay, this is my last book, this is my last movie, because I'm out of ideas. I'm kind of this is my oeuvre. These are my this is what I want to do. And it's not that I can't ever make anything in the future, but Gainax kind of needs to go. What keeps them going? Anime merch? Yes, anime merch is what keeps Gainax going. Well, historically. So the story goes, and this is according to the Notenki memoirs. Basically, Gainax was founded by fans. They were originally a merch company, and then they started the animation side of things with Otaku no Video and other things, and they had their big breakout with Honey and Mise, and that just kind of exploded and exploded, but they were not business people. So they kept getting contracts, when they would get in the money for things, their contracts were always terrible. So even if something was successful, they got no money out of it. Gainax was just, running in the red continually. And when Evangelion was made, they thought that would be their last show. And in fact, they said, if Evangelion is not a success, we will shut our doors. That was a thing everyone knew. And it's one of the reasons why they threw everything into Evangelion. Evangelion was just every idea all at once. And that is great. And then what happened was Evangelion, and I think this is a quote from the book, Evangelion just would not stop making money. That was the thing, is that Evangelion, just money kept pouring in. Even, and he said, our contracts were still bad, but the money was so big, it still just overflowed our coffers, right? Evangelion was just this cultural phenomenon in Japan. And that kept the company going. And it allowed them to keep going. And then after that, they got better at contracts, and so the money flowed better. But even there, historically, it's been the merch that has kept them going. They make more money off merch or they have generally made more money off merch and ancillary things like the video games, stuff like that. What was the Evangelion strip poker project game, which is a big deal. So that's the thing. That's been a huge help. So that's what I know of the story there. But it seems they've kind of. I don't want to speculate on what's happened creatively there. It certainly does feel like they got a new generation with the Trigger folks, and then something happened internally, and the Trigger folks all migrated out en masse. So who knows? Favorite anime studio? That's tough. I mean, Sunrise would have to be there just because Gundam has given me so much joy over the years. I just, love Gundam, and I appreciate what Sunrise does. But also, Sunrise is not, if you're looking for fluid character animation, right, Sunrise is not the place to go to normally. So it kind of depends. Madhouse always does interesting stuff. There's always some stylistic take that Madhouse takes, which I appreciate and is always interesting, but that's always going to be variable. So I respect Madhouse, but I don't always love its output, fundamentally. Trigger is just a little too stylized for me, I think, a lot of the times. Again, I respect it a lot. I just saw JJ's I liked Clamp and Shaft. That is oh dear. I'm sorry. That took me a minute. I like Clamp and Shaft too. Boy, there's a clip for you. Bones is definitely very, that's high quality. What Bones can churn out is amazing. Obviously, we'd have to say Studio Ghibli, but also I'll say Studio Ghibli's kind of obsession with naturalism sometimes I think gets in the way or keeps them from doing more stylistic work or stuff that's interesting visualizations, things like that. Hey, Gorilla. Uh, um, and obviously I love Makoto Shinkai's work, but that is very distinctive. Um, Very, very different. Oh, totally. Yeah, Bluebird videos would be cool. Um, so yeah, it's tough. Um, yeah, it kind of depends on what you're making, which is one of the things about anime in general is that there is no best studio. It's kind of the studio that you want for what you're trying to do. Sunrise is made up of I think 7 sub studios. It is massive. Sunrise is a huge, huge thing, and they each specialize. So you get particular things at a particular Sunrise sub studio. So it depends on what you get there. I don't know. Um, wow. Yeah, you're right, Jay. You sure did, Gorilla. Woo. Um, so yeah, it's tough. So JJ, the thing about I've been reading some about the whole idea of the global, um, uh, the global market. Turns out what that actually means is China. When people say that overseas sales are increasing, the large majority of that is China, and often it is considered impolitic to call that out. People don't necessarily want to admit that that's happening, but it seems like that increase in overseas sales, a bit is America, but the vast majority is China. So that's the interesting thing is to ask, well, is that what's going on, or is does more money just mean make more stuff that China likes? Who knows? Yeah, and I mean, Ghost Stories has some lovely animation. Ghost Stories is there's some. It's funny. Every episode of Ghost Stories, like 98% of the episode will be completely effective workhorse animation. Not too cheap, nothing crazy. And then there will be one shot of like all the kids running down the hall, and the camera will like follow them and then like follow them down the staircase. Just one crazy well done shot in Ghost Stories. Really weird. Exactly, Derpy33. You never know. Actually, that's one of the things. Hey, Spin. That's one of the problems they're having at Sunrise is that the reason, by the way, they're moving towards all CGI mecha at Sunrise is that nobody knows how to draw mecha anymore. The skill to realistically portray mecha from multiple angles is just dying out of the industry. So Sunrise has said, we can't find people and we can't train them. The old guard is retiring and moving away and can't there's kind of no one to train the new generation. So that's really a skill that's disappearing. So it's kind of weird that Sunrise of all people can't keep that going. I love Ghost Stories. I will admit the English dub of Ghost Stories does get it's past 10. Does get kind of one note sexual a lot of the times, where I get a little uncomfortable. It's like these characters are all like preteens, and I get the occasional joke, right? It is funny, but there are points in that dub where it's like, the last 5 minutes have all been sexual jokes, and it just feels a little weird. I would not be surprised if Elon Musk designed his own Gundam or had people design it for him. That is his thing. Yeah, I have not seen Weathering with You. It is playing in theaters here in January, and I do plan to see it in theaters. Shinkai's works definitely benefit from the big screen treatment, and I do want to support that film, so I think I'll do that. Spin to Win has a question about Zeta Gundam. I will answer to the best of my ability. I will also attempt to slow down a bit because I'm trying to do that with my voice. Because I tend to rattle along at a crazy speed. What is about Zeta Gundam that's made it stick out from the general UC Gundam timeline? Okay. Spoiler mode for Zeta Gundam. And I'll try not to reveal like too much about it. A couple of things. First, it was the first full-scale sequel anime series that I know of, i.e., original anime series and then full-on 50-episode sequel with returning characters and new characters. There had been, multiple seasons of shonen and such, but that didn't. That was just adapting the manga, and they knew there would be more. So that caught a lot of attention. Also, the fact that its main character is, and I've said this before, I believe somewhere on the autism spectrum, or at least behaves consistent with that, caught a lot of attention because that's not how you create your shonen protagonist. Camille is a really a unique protagonist for a shonen series and a mecha series. Amuro had his quirks, but Camille has a very difficult time just like interacting with regular people. So that blew a lot of minds at the time. Also, it helped that the animation budgets had been increasing because so many American shows were being financed out or made in Japanese studios. All that money was flowing in. So suddenly, the studios had kind of a surfeit of cash. And so, and the thing is, that had been happening over the course of the early 80s. But to see and compare original Gundam to Zeta Gundam is just shocking. And it just so happened that you had these two things to kind of really see how much Japanese animators had going for them at the time. How much the industry had evolved. That was shocking. Also, the fact that people die right and left in Zeta Gundam, and there was plenty of death and destruction in other anime leading up to that. I mean, Ideon, other stuff, but Zeta Gundam was really, really, very much had this dark tone to it all throughout. And even the dark anime before that usually would have like a light opening or a lighter tone to it, or some more humor back and forth. Zeta has this ongoing sense of seriousness to it, at least from what I remember. It's more consistently dark. Actually, I go back on that. That's not true. There's some weird goofiness with Zeta. But that's the I think those are things. And then of course the ending of Zeta Gundam. That and I mean literally like the last few minutes of Zeta Gundam. And I won't tell folks here exactly what happens. Suffice to say, it's a downer. And that was just shocking. Again, there had been technically darker endings in the past, but Zeta Gundam ends on a effectively hopeless note. Not completely hopeless, but just, bad things happen, the end. In a way that wasn't really the same, in Ideon, for example, at least once you get to the movies. A lot of these other things, at least there was some, the endings could be very tragic, but there was always some bittersweet aspect to it. At least these people, made it out of it, whatever. But Zeta is just, wow. And also, there's some, I don't know. The Cyber New type stuff is dark. So yeah, that's the thing. And yeah, JJ, drawing mecha is a skill. That is not easy. So Jay, you're rewatching anime you dropped and liking it a bit more. Yeah, that happens. A lot of times an anime is just not my thing. Um, but yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in Zeta that's tough. And Double Zeta, unfortunately, just had a rough reputation. I think Double Zeta has some really impressive stuff. It has my favorite death in all of Gundam, and Double Zeta has this again a reputation for just being really weirdly goofy and comedy, but that's really more just the fact that Zeta had ended with this real dark downer ending. And the last couple episodes of Zeta are just people dying right and left, and just no comedy, just very serious all the way through. And then Double Zeta opened, and Tomino said, "I wanted to make something a little lighter with Double Zeta, so there's some comedy and upbeatness. But overall, Double Zeta is still, I mean, it's sort of middle ground. There's some very serious stuff, some very dark stuff, some lighter stuff, action, you know." Zeta was, I think, 50 episodes. Yeah. Yeah, Double Zeta is unfair. Um, and yeah, I appreciate that, JJ. I do have the issue that if I drop a show, it's like, well, I have 20 other anime I want to watch. It's really hard for me to go back to a show. Sometimes it'll happen, but it's pretty much. Um, the comedy in Double Zeta worked for me. You know, it was funny. It was fun. It was fine. Again, in context, I think it was appropriate. They were establishing the fact that the show was a little lighter in tone. The thing about Double Zeta is it bounces back and forth. It will have comedic stuff, and then it will shift and shift and shift, and have some really dark stuff. Um, you know, it, Double Zeta has a lot of death at the end. That climax is, I mean, it's all basically all the characters in the show or in the ending duking it out, and not all of them survive. That's not really a spoiler. Um, so what I liked about Double Zeta is that it could handle both of those moods. Obviously, comedy is very specific, but can you watch Zeta even if you haven't finished the original Gundam? Yes, absolutely. It helps to have watched original Gundam just because some of the old characters come back, and so it's nice having that context of seeing, this character now. I think 8 years later, when they show up, understanding the contrast, and sometimes it's not much of a contrast to who they were is nice and helps. Why is it so dark in here? Those lights seem really dark, but they're the same. I don't know. Sorry. Um, yeah, Haman is one of the best. Haman is up there in terms of Gundam villains. Because Haman is... What's great about Haman is that um, Haman is practically and pragmatically committed to her goal of, again, not a spoiler, bringing back Zeon, and will do pretty much anything to get there. She is a crackpot dictator in every sense, but she's not... and she has her mental issues, but she's not insane. She does not have a warped view of people or of the world. She's just extremely driven, to the point of kind of psychopathy. But she's not, cackling evil villain. And that's what makes her terrifying, is that she's a very effective leader. She's very effective at reading people and figuring out how to motivate them. She's very good at her job, which is pretty unusual for villains in a lot of anime series. And that's what I love about Haman, is that she's... Okay, YK2K, I don't believe in objectivity when it comes to best. There's no best. We'll get a new timeline soon. Yes, we are due for a new Gundam alternate timeline. I think with the Gundam 40th anniversary, they're holding back on that, because they're like, well, it's time to celebrate everything that's gone before, as opposed to doing a whole bunch of new stuff. And the new stuff will be more like Hathaway's Flash, So I think that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I'm not big on the idea that that the alternate timelines are over. I think we'll get one probably in like 2 or 3 years. Once the 40th anniversary dies down, it'll be time to start something new. Um, I always love Gundam questions. Um, and I agree, Derpy. I think it's much easier to watch a happy show turn darker than vice versa, which I think works well. Do I believe that age and real contemporary technology that is getting smaller and smaller is going against the concept of mecha? Okay, real talk here. Mecha are absurd. Uh, there's a great. So I think I mentioned this before. On the DVDs, Blu-rays for Full Metal Panic: The Second Raid, I believe. Yeah, there's a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, which is basically footage that the staff shot in research, so footage of real tanks and so forth, with the director and writer talking over them, just sort of chatting about the process. And one of the things they mentioned during there, while they're watching tanks, is one of them sighs and says, mecha really are just ridiculous. Like, there's just no, I mean, one RPG to the leg takes out a mecha. It's how on earth do you make that realistic? And the other guy goes, yeah, but they're so cool. Yeah, they're so cool, and they both agree. Like, mecha are so cool. It's really hard to objectively look at mecha as a realistic military technology. That said, one of the problems that has always plagued the idea of real life mecha is speed. It's really hard to move that much metal and that much material at that kind of a speed. When tank treads are easier to kind of get up to speed compared to all these joints. And I think when we see, as we're seeing technology lead to miniaturization, it allows for some of those things that you see in mecha. It allows for the development of special polycarbonates and special alloys. It allows you to create these very complex joints in smaller spaces. So I actually think a lot of the aspects of mecha are going to be easier in the future. I think what's going to happen, I'm going to be honest, this may sound crazy, I think we will get mecha, but they're going to be entertainment objects. I don't think we'll get mecha as, weapons of war. I think, Bandai will build a Gundam statue that actually walks around and can raise its arms and things like that, and that will kind of evolve as an entertainment spectacle. And so I think we'll see those things, in that way. I think that just kind of makes more sense. That giant robots are cool, so make them a cool thing to watch. But as military technology, seems weird. And absolutely, Akko. And the real robot was more in how Gundam approached its technology. The fact that the Gundam doesn't magically get repaired every week. If it's badly damaged in one episode, it may still be out of commission the next episode, or it may be missing an arm. It's the fact that they tried to be reasonably, realistic with the use of technology. But yeah, I mean, the Gundam looks like a toy. It looks like something out of, the anime of the 70s. And again, that's not a complaint. That was what people made. That is the visual style of the time. Robot Wars Gundam Edition, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right, YK2K. That's the thing. Star Trek's technology is dated, but it looks cool. And obviously it presaged a lot of our technology. But it's more about thinking, what kind of future tech would exist to solve obvious problems like long-range communication, that kind of stuff. And so communicators make sense for that. and you just have to wait for the technology to catch up. But it's, you're not worried about the details of what that'll look like. Um, but hard to say. Hard to say where that's going to go. So, yeah, I mean, I love Mecha. The other thing is, I love Mecha more for their stories than for the idea that the universe, that the future must contain, 2-story tall humanoid piloted military robots. I think those look cool, um, but I'm in it more for the characters and all that kind of stuff. Um, oh, absolutely. Star Trek benefited from the fact that it attracted high quality writers who tackled serious social issues, or at least told kind of well constructed science fiction stories. So the episode where they beam down to the planet that's been taken over by the big flying fried eggs that land on your back. The special effects look goofy, but it is about this idea of going to this remote area where, and I believe somebody's family is there, and trying to deal with this infestation. Um, that is a pretty well crafted structure for that story. Um, how does the Gundam franchise speak to the very personal experience of war as the Japanese experience it? I do not know. That's a great question. That is a really interesting question. But I would have to be Japanese to answer that, I think. Or I'd have to read a lot more about the Japanese experience in World War II. Um, I can certainly say that one of the problems that Gundam has, as does a lot of other franchises, is that Gundam, the hero of Gundam typically doesn't want to fight. And that's definitely a distinctively Japanese take on things. Usually, even in other Asian countries, the protagonist will be more, more antagonistic, more of a warrior type. But Gundam is very much kind of based on. And apologies, by the way. Every winter, my face gets very dry, and I unconsciously scratch it, which causes my face to get really red. So I put on, cream like all the time, but then it absorbs in like an hour, and then immediately I'm scratching my face again. So I'm all flushed and scratching constantly. So yeah, I think World War II was influential in the sense that Gundam has this reluctant protagonist, which is obviously also a common theme in a lot of other Japanese works. So I think that would go. Sure, pointlessness of war, and the painfulness of losses. Although I think that's the pain of the loss in war is a common theme in pretty much all war stories. You see that in American war movies too. The high cost of war. Just American movies tend to be more about but it was a just cause, whereas Japanese are much more ambivalent about that for very good reasons. Um, oh wow, Sebastian, that's yeah, that's the thing a lot of folks don't talk about, is how many people avoided service during World War II and just kind of quietly emigrated, and which was illegal, but you could find ways of doing that. There was quite a lot of Japanese emigration around World War II because of that. Yeah, exactly, Raxel, and obviously large scale devastation. And you don't want to read too much into that. Not that any one of us is, but people tend to say, oh gosh, all of these apocalypses in anime, clearly that's a metaphor for the atomic bomb. I'm sorry. Watch American Hollywood movies too, right? We have apocalyptic stories too. We have giant explosions, Uh, we like our large scale devastation as well. I mean, which is not to say that what's in Japanese media has no relation to that, but I do think folks get a little overly fixated on the atomic bombing as the explanation for all Japanese media, you know. And again, I don't think any of you are suggesting that or believing that, but that is just kind of one of those things I've noticed sometimes. Um, so yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I also understand like there was a lot going on in India during World War II. Tech China. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party basically consolidated their power during World War II. The reason the Communist Party exists in China is to a great extent because of what they did during World War II and how things kind of worked out over the course of World War II, and nobody was kind of paying attention over there. At least the Western powers were not paying attention to China, or more accurately, the Western powers saw what was going on, but decided that wasn't as important as everything else that was going on, which is again a not unreasonable reaction. But yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure about Godzilla. Um, while Godzilla and the idea of atomic energy being the thing, powering it, um, certainly relates Godzilla to the explosion, but I don't think Godzilla's popularity is primarily about its its symbolism as a nuclear explosion, mainly because that franchise's popularity was based on 8-year-olds going to watch Godzilla movies. It was the spectacle of a science fiction action, movie. And so I think the ties to the atomic bombing are light. They're not tenuous. They're definitely there. But in terms of why that franchise is popular, I think it's more because it's the kind of movie that's easy to watch, with a box of popcorn, um, as opposed to trying to read every plot line or every movie's plot line as some symbolism for the atomic bombing. So I don't know. It's tough. I think, and I think the other problem is that we're seeing through a glass darkly in a sense because a lot of American commentary on Japanese media started by talking about Godzilla. Like Godzilla was one of the early when American pop culture theorists started talking about Japanese media. Godzilla was one of the first things, and so they saw the atomic bombing thing and latched onto it, and so that tended to be the main thing they talked about. And back then in those early days, there wasn't a lot of rigor around pop culture commentary, so I think there was somewhat of a lack of perspective there. And so again, I don't know. It's hard to sift through that to see what the actual data is about. How much do Japanese people see Godzilla as actually being about the atomic bomb? Right. One of the interesting things about Shin Godzilla, for example, is that it becomes a much more explicit metaphor for the current state of the atomic bomb worldwide. How we use the atomic bomb, the fact that the atomic bomb is not just a thing from the past, it is a thing in the present, which is really interesting. Um, so Sebastian, note, um, well, demons depends on how you define demon. Oni, no, they're usually pretty bad. Your traditional Japanese monsters are pretty often portrayed as bad. Demons as in horns, and church as in the Catholic Church. I totally agree because that is a foreign concept to most Japanese people. The Catholic Church is an exotic set of symbols and imagery as opposed to anything that those creators are really trying to create symbolism out of. So I don't think that's really a commentary on that. It's more gee, crosses look cool. Aren't habits interesting? And demons are portrayed as tall, lanky men, and then we know they all have to be hot guys. So, certainly true. But I think I think it's more the exoticism of the traditional Catholic Church in Japan. See here. I have a few things on my watch list. I've actually been trying to catch up on other stuff, as I mentioned. So watching movies and such. But I'm hoping over the next week or so to start getting back caught up with Bookworm and High School Prodigies and a few others. Oh, I did something wrong. Yeah, I might want to. I should probably move the chat over somewhere closer to the camera. Oh, absolutely, Spin. I think a lot of I think the vast majority of Japanese, their first exposure to Christianity is through mass media, or going to a wedding. Bizarrely, I think it's 90 to 95% of Japanese weddings occur in a Christian church. Although only 2% of the population is Christian. It's just the way it works. So yeah, absolutely religious. It's weird. So that's the other thing. If you look at how Shinto is portrayed or how Buddhism is portrayed in anime, it's very respectful. I think there's very different views on things because Christianity is kind of this it's not a completely foreign thing, but an exotic thing to most Japanese people. It's something they just have no exposure to outside of movies and such. And because Hollywood is kind of distant from church, Hollywood is not a particularly religion friendly place. They tend to, if not exoticize religion, then it's certainly most Hollywood characters are not church going folk, right? So it's not as easily handled. Yeah, but Inuyasha is not a typical example. I don't think. I will admit. Yeah, agreed, Jay. Saturday night is the night. This is totally working. So I'm very glad for that. Yeah, exactly. Certain magical index. It's just weird. It's weird. And it should also be pointed out that the average Japanese person isn't necessarily particularly... I think Japanese people are more religious than we give them credit for, but they're not outwardly religious. They're not going to their local temple, regularly, in terms of weekly. But they do go, every New Year. They take their chopsticks there to be burned. A lot of those things kind of goes. There is a strong religious undercurrent in Japanese society, but it's just not spoken of much, right? It's just people aren't evangelical about it. Right, it's more of a cultural practice, and I think there, it is there, and I think people in Japan aren't, they call it a very secular nation. I'm not so convinced of that. And this is actually based on an episode of Japanology where they talked to some Buddhist monks about that, and they said, for a non-religious nation, we have an awful lot of monks, and we have people showing up at shrines all the time. Our shrines are very, are usually pretty well attended. And yes, there are people just kind of going there on a school trip or whatever, but still, like there's something more going on here. People still do, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I think it's a little more complex than folks give it credit for. Yeah, spin. I think that's similar. Somebody who's kind of culturally Jewish but doesn't like practice the religion, religiously, so to speak. Uh, Weird. But yeah, that's. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Alrighty. In that case, is there a difference between Japan's view on sci-fi as compared to American sci-fi? I think absolutely. Um, Japanese sci-fi. I'm gonna think about this as off the top of my head. Japanese sci-fi tends to be more gimmicky, for lack of a better term, in the sense of more focused on props, more focused on, the accoutrement of a science fiction character. So people having ray guns and belts and helmets and things like that. Much more so than we have over here. Not just in terms of the kids shows, but I think that's kind of a cultural thing that you are kind of defined by these bits of technology, which could have to do with Japan's high tech culture, the fact that you have a lot of these very advanced technological objects people can buy. There also seems to be more of a relaxed view on, I want to say, realism, in the sense that Japanese side, you don't see a lot of carefully constructed science fiction worlds in Japanese sci-fi. It's a little more kit bashing, a bit here, a bit there, pulled together, which is not to say that there are none. And not to say that the Japanese creators don't create original settings ever, but it tends to be more evolutionary. Oddly, it's more like American fantasy, where American fantasy tends to be basically Tolkienian, fantasy worlds, just with a few twists here and there. Japanese science fiction tends to follow that model of this is, Ultraman-esque, right? Or this is kind of this or that, whatever. She had an American Pie type of anime. Um, isn't that Kiss Sis? I don't know. Heck, isn't it Golden Boy? Yeah, I mean, isn't American Pie like all the ecchi anime? I'm not sure. I don't know why Kiss Sis was the first thing that came to mind. There was something I was scrolling through something and Kiss Sis just popped up as like a scroll. Yeah, I haven't seen any of the American Pie movies, so if you're making a particular reference to a particular moment in those, I'm afraid I can't follow. That is not a film series that had any appeal to me, one way or the other. Yeah, for some reason there's something I was scrolling through and I saw an image of Kiss Sis and I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. It's a big thing. There's a lot of Kiss Sis works out there. Like during college and stuff. Ah, gotcha. Oh my goddess. There's Ride Back. There's not a lot. You're absolutely right. College anime. Golden Boy, again, technically. I believe he's not Golden Boy. I think he's post college, but barely. He's like 23, 24, something like that. Grand Blue. Cool. Oh yeah, I watched the first episode of that. That was weird. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, I very much get the sense that college life is much more. Oh, Genshiken, of course. There's Genshiken. I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen like the first few episodes of Genshiken. Really liked it, but again, one of those things that for some reason I moved on to other things. Um, yeah, that's the thing, Echo. You know, I didn't like any of the characters in Grand Blue, and it seemed to be very much drunk humor. You know, this guy's doing dumb things while drunk, haha. And it's like, well, that's kind of what happens when you're drunk, you know. So yeah, that didn't really do much for me. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed Genshiken. Um, I found it weird that it was kind of overtaken by Kujibiki Unbalance. It's, you know, its joke kind of overtook the franchise. Very bizarre. I guess not the weirdest thing in the world. But yeah, I get the sense that the college experience in Japan is pretty laid back. You know, once you've made it into college, you basically know where your life is going to go, and so as long as you don't do terribly, you'll be fine. And so it's a much more chill experience. And so I think there's a sense that that's just not a very interesting time to explore. You know, you've gone through the big pressure cooker of high school to get into to college, but when you've done that, you know, it goes. Spin, you know me. You know, I don't have favorites. My mind doesn't work that way. I literally don't have favorites. You know, my brain cannot rank, you know, a comedy over a drama, or a romance over a sports anime, or an action anime. Short story writing going. Good question, Suzume. It has not. I'll be honest. It's in the back of my mind. There are some things I want to write, but I have not been able to take care of it. I'll be honest. I had a few things going on this week. I was for some reason exhausted. I actually took off some time at work because I was just not feeling well. I slept for almost the entire day on Thursday. I was awake for maybe like 3 hours. So it's been kind of a weird week. I feel fine now. And then like one of my headlights died on my truck on Thursday, so I had to take that in to get that taken care of. So a lot of weird little things going on this week, which is kind of required me to force on things like getting laundry done. So hopefully I'll make some progress. I've done a lot of writing in the past, almost none of it published. But I do like doing that, and I have had times when I was in a regular writing mood. Is there things? Do you guys have an idea of something that I would like? Would you like to see my writing process? Would you like me to live stream writing something? Should I be posting like what I'm drafting? You know, different drafts of my writing as I'm going. Um, Thanks, JJ. It was weird. Thanks, Exit Bag. Yeah, I kind of like this structure. Again, for some reason, it's very dark in the back there. Usually, it's better lighting. But oh, you know what's going on? One second. There we go. Yep. Having that light on just really sucked all the light out of the rest of the room. Live reading. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a tough month for any kind of hobby. What I might end up doing is posting more videos around just the writing process and not like push anyone to write anything, but say this is the month to kind of explore the concept of writing, explore genres you might want to do, and like you said, maybe come back to it in the new year, a couple of months from now, and dive into. Oh, you make a list of words you want to write about. That's a good idea. Live stream a D&D session. I would like to do that. One of my players does not want to be, has a sensitive job and does not want to be on camera. So I need to do a subset, but I'm going to invite my players to schedule one-off sessions with me over the next month or so. And if that happens, I will try to live stream it, or at least record it and post it. I would love to do that. Ooh, live readings. That would be fun. Like live readings of other folks. You know what I might do? Ooh, yes. One second. I'm going to pull out a book. I once tried doing running a writing class locally to say, hey, I'm not a published author in the classical sense, although I did get a column published in a newspaper once. That's it back there, actually. One little article. But I did try to do a little writer's circle locally through adult education. And one of the most successful things was to read existing, opening pages of books and then kind of analyze them. And that might be a good thing, to take the first page of a book and say, okay, I'm going to read this. Now, what do we know about the characters? What have we been introduced to in the plot? Like, how has this flowed? Stuff like that. So that one might be interesting. I think that would be helpful. So maybe we'll do that. It'll be more an exploration of writing as a thing, as opposed to a thing we have to do. Cool. Yeah, we had the poetry hobby a few months ago, which worked out quite well. All right, it's kind of late here as well, so I think that's going to wrap it up for us for tonight. As always, this has been great. Saturdays has definitely been an effective night for the Saturday stream, so I'll be keeping on doing that for the live streams. And we should be back. So let me just pull up the schedule, the calendar. So the 21st is next week. Yeah, we shouldn't be having a problem. May have some special guests in a couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, that'll do it. Thanks all so much. This is great. Have a good one. Have a great week. Until next time, watch more anime.